Hi everyone, it's Roger here from What's on DisneyPlus.com. Make a hello and welcome to everyone joining in live and also on replays, etc. So a big hello to already those that are in the live chat. So I can see we've got Jonathan, Caleb, Babak, Barbara Trolling, and also Keenan. So big hello to all of you. So this week, and we do this every single week, where I will talk and answer the questions that have been sent in by our Patreon and our YouTube channel members. So they have been able to submit them in advance. But also, if you're a YouTube channel member, you can join in on the live chat as well, and you can join in there. Also, you can use the super chat function to send in questions, or you can become a member and ask questions that way, all of which just helps support the channel and the website and just really makes a huge difference. So big thank you to everyone that has done so already. So a big hello again to everybody in the live chat. So let's start off. We've got a lot of questions with what happened over the weekend, with news that Disney is set to close down a number of its streaming apps in the US, including ABC, Freeform, Nat Geo, Disney Now, and also FX Now. So they're all going to be closing down on September the 23rd. I think that's just gone blank on that one. But yeah, so these apps, generally, these are for cable viewers because you would have to log in with your cable ID and stuff, and then you could watch stuff. They also, on the ABC one, there was some live channels as well. On Disney Now, there was some kids games as well. Now, a lot of the content of these apps, that's all gonna disappear. They're not gonna, but you are still gonna be able to access it through the websites for those things. They're not completely shutting it. And my view for this would generally be along the lines of they are trying their best to get around the technical thing. Well, we are providing you with the option of using this function, but we've made it, to be honest, that most people aren't going to bother. They want you to sign up to Disney Plus or to Hulu. But also, more importantly, you're going to start seeing most cable providers are probably going to end up starting to include Disney Plus with ads anyway. So there's not a lot of point for some of this stuff. I think some of this as well was down to existing contracts and stuff. As the big cable companies all come up for renegotiations, it's probably likely to be that this kind of whole platform gets shut down. And that's why we've been seeing Disney closing down these apps. There's a lot of great questions, but let's just start off with the one first off. So Leon asks, is Disney Plus merging all of these services into one big mega app with multiple features, entertainment channels, and bonus miscellaneous features such as merchandise and pay-per-views? So the big reason, primarily, there's multiple reasons why Disney is doing this. So first off, it is to boost engagement. The more things that are in Disney Plus, the more things that you'll be in there for. You'll be going in there to watch more content. So when it was just Marvel, Star Wars, and Bluey, that was all people are going in there for. You start throwing in all the ABC and the 20th century and all that kind of stuff, it starts building out to being a little bit more popular. In just over a week's time, on September the 4th, in the US, they're going to be launching ABC News Live. So you're going to be able to watch live news in there. That's only in the US, all ahead of the election. There's going to be also the first curated list, which is going to be featuring like Disney Junior stuff, and there's going to be 4 more curated playlists coming later on. Now, the reason I'm doing the earbuds, so for those of you that can't see, there's going to be a lot of questions here as well about the fact that people kind of calling these channels, that's kind of what they used to be, what we tend to think of. And there's been a lot of kind of questions about, live channels, all this kind of thing. And I think this is definitely part of that, so that there's obviously the way of boosting engagement. The other big thing as well is reducing costs as well. If you've got 6 apps, therefore you're going to need to have servers and stuff for everything. And you're going to have people uploading stuff. So one of the big problems with Disney Plus is there's a lot of little mistakes and stuff that take a long time to get fixed, and little errors and things. And I think a lot of this is down to them trying to run too many platforms, too many things, and this is causing problems. And so I do think that merging them together will help with that. Also, it should help kind of get the development team so they're all focused on one project, trying to make that better, rather than keep doing all this weird stuff on different platforms. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, I think they've been doing some experimenting, like on the ABC app, they were doing like fast channels, free ones. On Star in Latin America, they kind of were testing out bits and pieces. So I think they've been testing stuff out, but they'll bring this all together, and I think that's it. Also, they've been doing like merchandise and stuff and Disney Plus perks. So there was always this kind of talk about it being like Amazon Prime, where if you were on Disney Plus, you would get extra discounts for cruise lines, Disney park tickets, Disney merch, cinema tickets. They're doing a lot. And it makes sense, use Disney Plus to get some more money out of your pocket. Because here's a simple thing. If they offer us 10% off a cruise or 10% off a trip at Walt Disney World, if you are a Disney fan, you're more likely going to have it. And therefore, they're just keeping that money engaged. So that it's just keeping people in. So again, just a lot of this is it just makes so much sense. Disney has been so distracted with having way too many apps. And a lot of it is down to existing contracts that are just long in the tooth. And also, I think a little bit of a case of, while they were still making a lot of money from cable, they didn't really want to stop this. But now we can see where the future's going. We are seeing that, Disney's idea of having 3 separate platforms, Disney Plus, Hulu, and ESPN Plus, was fine in a world where we were all having lots and lots of streaming services and they were like $5 each and the economy was in a better situation. But globally, the economy is generally struggling. People are looking at cutting back costs and the prices continue to rise. So therefore, you start cutting back. And a single streaming service like Disney Plus, where you put in all of the Hulu content, and obviously in December, they're going to be adding in the ESPN hub in the United States, and then next year they're going to be adding in the full version of ESPN. Now that'll be as an added bonus, but added cost. Sorry, they've already done this in Latin America when they brought the ESPN hub in there, and I think we're going to be seeing ESPN hubs popping up in other countries and stuff because of the upcoming NBA rights, college basketball. Like here in the UK, that kicks in next year. It doesn't happen this year. There's a whole other season to go yet, but we're going to start seeing, I think, that kind of thing coming in. Keep going on some of these questions. Babak says, I've noticed that Disney has been running a Rediscover the Classics campaign where they're promoting older shows and movies. Is this because they don't have much coming out as before? Yeah, kind of. But also, a lot of these old stuff pull in more views than... But also, you're really seeing now the lack of summer releases. There's just not a lot out, and it's not just on Disney Plus; it's on all of them. But yeah, there's definitely a lot coming out. Keeney says, "Do you actually post Nielsen's pie charts every month?" Yeah, so usually on the website, I do different articles regarding like the gorge that they release. I also do like a weekly report of what's streaming. So yeah, I do tend to cover Nielsen's numbers quite a bit. Babak also says, "Do you think that Disney will add some free channels to Disney Plus because of the closure of the ABC app?" So this one's interesting. I don't know if Disney's going to go in and load up with a lot more curated playlists instead of channels. I think that's where they seem to be avoiding the term channel. And I don't know if that's due to like linear or anything like that. I do think they're going to add a lot more. It makes sense to add more channels at a later date. You start off with a few and start sort of loading in more and more and more if they're popular. Now, I would not be surprised if Disney Plus actually ended up getting like a free tier where you could only access curated lists and maybe a very, very limited stuff, all with ads. I wouldn't be surprised if they ended up doing something like that, where they just make a little part of Disney Plus. You can at least see something for free, and that might help it compete with like Tubi and things like that and Pluto. If they just start putting in now, you might find, for example, if you're on a free account, that you might get twice as many ads as if you're on the ad supported version. They could do it like that. I wouldn't be surprised if they do something like that in the future. I mean, it could undermine the cost of Disney Plus, and people were just like, well, I don't need to pay for it. But I think you have to look at it. If the people that are watching it for free, if they're making some more money from it, they probably wouldn't have been subscribed anyway. Let's see you on the live chat. Let's see what we've got. Barbara Trotting, thank you so much for being a member for 38 months. Thank you. That's fantastic. Do you think that Disney will close the ESPN app? I don't think they're going to close the ESPN app completely, because there is going to be an audience that will be that doesn't want Disney Plus, but also maybe wants all the sports news, and having all of it together, and they can then probably interlink with the ESPN Bet. There is use, I think, for ESPN to have its own separate app, but obviously with it linked to Disney Plus, so you can access the sport within the app. I think will just help increase viewership. Let's see what we've got here. Jonathan says, will there be a Bluey season 4? Don't know. We know there's going to be these new mini episodes they're doing. They're doing some specials and stuff. I think the creators kind of trying out some different things at the minute, so it doesn't look like anything right now. Film Watcher says, to answer the question, yeah, sure, but why not? I don't know how it would affect each region. For example, we don't have Disney now. Yeah, so again, outside of the United States, this isn't really a major problem because we don't have any of these apps. It's a legacy problem from linear from the days before they had Disney Plus and full control of Hulu. This is a legacy media app that is kind of, it's run its course and it's just not necessary anymore. But yeah, it doesn't have any impact on us outside of the US. You can see them doing more Bluey episodes, but they have to go through BBC and Ludo Studio. Maybe, I think, to be honest, they're probably gonna have to spend out a little bit more for them to do it. Kelly's watching AEW audience, so that's actually in the UK right now. I'm kind of going to catch up on the clips. I'm not going to lie, I'm not really feeling AEW right that minute. I think, judging by the amount of people that didn't go to AEW this weekend in London, kind of says a lot. I know my brother-in-law, he went last year. He decided he wasn't going to go this year. He also thinks they can consolidate the apps and fast channels could also be licensed. I mean, if there is an alternative for like fast channels of whether or not they license stuff out to Tubi, but I don't know. I think they've got two options. They either license it out to like Tubi and stuff, or do they just do something themselves with Disney Plus? I don't know. Let's actually just do that as a poll. So as I asked you as a poll, do you think they're going to merge? 88% of you think yes. Let's do a new poll. Let's do this one. Do you think... Oh, actually, I'm going to change that one. How do you think Disney will handle fast? So we'll go with free tier in Disney Plus. License. My keyboard is being really funny with me today. I think I might just need to plug it in. Sorry about this, folks. Right, license. There we go. That is working now. Or ignore it. Right, let's see what else we've got. Kelly says, speaking of international events, should Disney host D23 in London one day? The film industry, both US and India, are investing in the UK, so an event could be a boon. I think the trouble is with these kind of big events is they are obviously very expensive for them to run. They are popular, but there is a kind of a catch-22 of if they do too many of them, it might undermine them a little bit. I do think I don't think that they would have a problem selling out. They've done it at Star Wars Celebration stuff. I think they could do a D23 here in the UK very, very easily, and I think they would make a lot of money from it. And they'd obviously be a lot easier for stars because there's already a lot of them here in like the UK. But there's lots of issues. I know, like with Star Wars Celebration as well, like getting the vendors and stuff to come over, you get a lot less than in the US. I don't know. I feel like I don't know, like with conventions as a whole, I don't know if it feels a little bit like they've kind of, they had a huge boon like at the end of the noughties. Obviously, then the pandemic whacked them. They've kind of come back a little bit, obviously, but I don't know if like the interest in them is the same as it was because there's been so many of them, and there's like almost like one every weekend. Does that make? I don't know. That's kind of how I feel on that one. Babak says it looks like Disney's going to have a very busy September with the Disney Plus playlist update and close. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be very busy, hopefully, and also just getting new releases. It'd be nice to get some new stuff. Knoxwave is currently in vacation in California, and I'm currently I mean, oh, you enjoyed your vacation in California, currently in New York City. California is lovely. Keenan's at the fair. Hope you had a good one. Knox Waves. This isn't right, because you did say about this before. I've tried the Lightning Lane at Disneyland and at Disney California Adventure, and I honestly didn't like the way we have to use the app to select times for each ride. Unlike a Universal Express, where you can enter each ride and skip lines at any time you want, since I chose the unlimited ticket. The big problem really with that Universal one is the cost. I know last time we were in Florida, the cost of it was crazy. It would have probably been cheaper for us to book a hotel room, which is what they want. Jotza says, what do you think if Disney Plus releases Pokemon anime? I think it'd be good. I think it'd be popular. Pokemon is very popular. Keenan says, what is the difference between a curated playlist on Disney Plus and channels on streaming services? I think there's not really, I don't think much of a difference, because a channel there's a difference of like a live stream of a channel, but I mean, even that is the same way. I mean, if you look at, like, let's say, for example, the Disney Channel, they have a schedule, and then they run the shows at the times on, and a lot of this is pre-done in advance, and it's just rolling, and then they put the ads in between it. The curated playlist is essentially a modern way of doing that, where they will be like, right, here is the show episodes, play them in order, same way that you do with Spotify or YouTube, and then they will just insert ads as and when. It's probably a much easier way for them to do it, because they've probably got the technology much easier for them to do. And whether or not they call them channels, I think there might be some issue maybe with the cable companies, and like they might not want to call it that. And maybe, I don't know, it's a bit of a weird one. I think a lot of people, when you say channels, I see it so often in the comments of people thinking it's just a full live stream of, you know, ABC and Disney Channel stuff. And it's like, that's not really what they're doing for. The ABC News is a little bit different, but yeah, we're not getting live streams of those channels. Babak says they used to have a free version of Peacock, but they closed it down. It's kind of catch-22. But also, I think, like with Comcast, they don't seem to have a clue what they're doing with their streaming services. They seem to be still throwing spaghetti against the wall in the idea of trying to get you to keep going. Babak says, in these new deals with cable companies, do you think that Disney will try to get rid of the next day rule? I hope so. I think it's a ridiculous thing. It feels very, again, it's a leftover of Hulu and linear, where linear was the king and streaming was the second best. And to me, it just feels very like, why are you complicated? Because we don't have next day here. That doesn't really exist in that same way. Even like BBC and the Channel 4 and stuff, they kind of now, they just put the episode up at the time that it goes out live. And sometimes they will just put the episode up in the morning. I think we're at a point where they have to essentially acknowledge that the linear is no longer the number one. Linear is now number two, or even treating them equal. I mean, that's the way I would do it. I would just treat them equal. So if you said, for example, I don't know, let's just say a new episode of Grey's Anatomy is coming out on Wednesday at 8:00. Well, you've got two options at that point. You either put it up at midnight so people can watch it first thing in the morning, like they do with every other release, and if you're watching it on linear, you've just got to wait until the evening, or you do a prime time drop and just put it up at the same time. The problem is, when they do that, it does cause problems with international audiences, because suddenly then you're then having to do advertising saying it's out on, say, like Agatha. You know, when they say it's out on like the 18th, well, it's actually on the 19th for us because of the time zone. So there is, I personally just think, like, put the episode up, and if the linear ratings drop, it doesn't really matter because they've got the viewings anyway. I also think the free tier will make it much more accessible for those who are cost conscious, and hopefully be good advertising for Disney projects. I think there is that good thing as well. I mean, you could give away a limited number of, like, you could give away the first episodes of shows just to kind of get people locked in. Babak says, why doesn't Disney do Marvel Con like Star Wars Celebration on alienating on alternative years from Star Wars Celebration? I think they've talked about it. I think they've always kind of viewed that, like, I think because there's so many Comic-Cons and kind of San Diego Comic-Cons airs, I don't know. I mean, I think they could do, but at the same time, everyone is really only really paying any attention to those big TV and movie panels. You know, if they do panels about, you know, video games and comic books and stuff, then will, the room's going to be much harder to be filled out. Keenan says, how can channels affect live streaming since the only live streaming Disney Plus is Dancing with the Stars? Yeah, I mean, again, this comes down to the fact of that the concept of a live stream of a linear channel is, I would suspect, a major contention point for the cable companies. They don't want you, if they start giving away Disney Channel and FX streaming straight through Disney Plus, could you imagine what the cable companies are going to want for that? No worries, Knoxwave. Hope you had a good day. Bubba 20 says, what do you think the future will happen with Max, Paramount, Peacock in the future? I think Peacock probably is going to be around for much longer. They've got a lot of money. They're fine. I think Paramount Plus will end up closing and licensing its content out. And I think Max is going to end up licensing. I think they're going to get swallowed up or sold off, or I don't know, Zaslav is going to sell some bits off. I don't know. It does seem very weird. He also says, how much money do you think Disney is saving by closing down this app? Who knows? Hard to tell. We've got no numbers, so it would literally just be me pulling a number out my butt. Keenan says, is Disney bringing live channels to Disney Plus one of the main reasons why the FX Now ABC apps? Again, they're not live channels. And I think it's that terminology we've got to kind of get our heads around, that these aren't live channels that they're introducing. They're curated playlists. They're the same thing, but I think the terminology is something that we need to they're obviously trying to get around as well. When do you think Inside Out 2 will be released on Disney Plus? I think I originally thought it was going to be Thanksgiving. But I'm now thinking it might be September. I think we might get Inside Out 2 in September. Then we get Alien Romulus for for Halloween. And then I wouldn't be surprised if we get Deadpool and Wolverine for Thanksgiving. And then for Christmas, just trying to think what could be the next. I don't think they've got another big one out. I think that might be it. Connor says, going forward with the closure of the likes of Disney Now and ABC Plus.com, will this impact Disney Plus and Hulu? Do you think these closures will accelerate the launch of Disney Plus's curated channels? I do think it's going to be the start of the giving Disney Plus more of those curated playlist channel kind of things. I think it's just sending more people to Disney Plus and Hulu. They just don't need it. Again, it's a leftover legacy item. Elias says that Disney Store is advertising a Pixie perk where you get $20 off a future purchase if $75 more when you use a code on a present purchase. Is Amazon Prime for Disney Plus still in the works? Not heard anything. I think they definitely are pushing Disney Store merchandise through Disney Plus, but it definitely feels a bit like Disney Store is always a little bit odd with. I always look on there for stuff, but they seem to either they sell out of everything so either so quickly or it just hangs around for ages. There doesn't seem to be anything in between. Khalid says, I remember at the end of 2023, you said there'd be more consolidation amongst streamers. You didn't expect TV Anywhere apps to be the casualty. What are your thoughts? Well, I kind of the opposite, because I figured these were always endangered apps. These were apps which didn't really serve a purpose in a direct-to-consumer world. These were, again, leftover legacy contracts that I expect that as more and more contracts come up, they're going to start disappearing. So you don't need access to them. And if you want to watch it on demand, you either watch it through their onboard system that you have through their systems, or you subscribe to Disney Plus. They want you to pay twice. They're quite happy for that. But also, again, we don't know how many people were using these apps. You know, there is that other big issue of this cable numbers have been just dropping. So at a certain point, these apps, they might be looking at it going, look, these are just not running. You know, they're just not got enough people. There are some other apps, maybe I think definitely, say, for example, like Disney Now, where it's like, what's the viewership like? Is it so bad that it's like, is it actually costing them money to run the program? Freeform, I'm not going to lie. I think if DirecTV and one of the other big boy cable companies in the US dropped them, like they did, like Spectrum did, I can't see that channel surviving much longer. Just doing the poll here. So you about 62% of you think that the free tier in Disney Plus, and 33% of you think they're going to license. I think that probably makes sense. Matt says, why is Disney canceling Star Wars after one season and not giving it a second chance? Ooh. So the Acolyte. Oh, the Acolyte. This has been one hot mess over this last week. This is a whole topic in itself. And it's really kind of a weird one with the Acolyte, is that essentially this let's just be brutally honest. The viewership for the Acolyte was underwhelming and did not deliver. The viewership was low. It fell off the Nielsen streaming chart after like 3 weeks, and it didn't come back to the finale. The viewership numbers for this show were dismal after the first 2 episodes. Let's not kid ourselves that Disney is a business. They need people to watch the show in order for it to get more people to watch it, and etc. This show did not work. It did not pull in the audience. It didn't keep people entertained, and people did not check it out. And therefore, if you're going to be spending $160+ million on a show, it has to perform. Well, at that type of level, for the amount of money they're spending, this show had to perform at a much higher level than it did. So just on a pure, math and, economic level, an investment in the Acolyte didn't make a lot of sense for a second season. The viewership showed that the people weren't interested in this. Now, there are some other aspects to it. It's been very scary with how everyone thinks that they're gonna, they removed a few items off the Disney store, they then put them back, and everyone thought that Disney Plus has gotten such a bad reputation that the show is going to get whipped off Disney Plus. I don't think that will happen with the Acolyte. I think it's too big for that thing. But Disney's made a problem now with the Acolyte. Now online, depending on your echo chamber, you could have seen very much 2 things happening. You've either got one side is now essentially super happy that the show got cancelled and they didn't like it, and they didn't like all the representation and stuff. And then you've got another side that is also really disappointed in Disney and that the representation stuff. And there is just this kind of, and then you've got a whole load of people in the middle that are probably just like Star Wars fans that just went, this isn't very good. And I very much in that category of, I enjoyed a number of episodes of The Acolyte, but there were some episodes I did not like, and there was certainly problems with it. And I do think the representation stuff in it, I think there needs to be a place for it, but it's always been part of Star Wars. You think of Lando, you think of, different characters and stuff, Leia, and so many different characters over the time. And I just feel like this whole bubble about an explosion online of just both sides of just arguing over the Acolyte. And it is just I'll be honest, I got to the point where it's I did actually mute Acolyte on X, because I just couldn't be doing with the amount of just shouting on both sides about it. And it was just along the lines of, the show just wasn't good enough. It just wasn't good enough in the long run to keep people entertained. And that is the biggest problem with it. People didn't like it. And at that level, at that cost, the Acolyte just didn't work. And Disney are now having to go back and relook at what they are doing. And I do think they've made some very critical mistakes. And I think they've, I think the whole thing with them targeting what audience and stuff that they're going for, and I think that Marvel fell under the same problem, was that Disney tended to know how to market to girls, and they brought Star Wars and Marvel to focus for boys, and then they kind of tried going in and trying to get Star Wars and Marvel to go to girls, and that then pissed off the boys. Now, obviously, this is just a generalization. Obviously, there's lots of levels and different things in the line of it, and it's not necessarily just to say Star Wars is for boys, girls can enjoy it too. But obviously the target market was that, and they've kind of, I think they moved a little bit too far to the point where the target audience that loved Star Wars hasn't liked it. I mean, I cannot get my two nephews who are like 9 and 6 into Star Wars. I've tried. They're not appealed. But Marvel on the other side, they love, but I just cannot get them into Star Wars. They're just not interested in it. And I think that's a fundamental flaw of the last few years of, and that's not necessarily I think, there's nothing wrong, Princess Leia, Padme, that's Ahsoka, they've all been strong females, and that's just default Star Wars. That's really, that's just the way it's always been. But we've just seen the audience is just rejecting this stuff, and now Disney is now having to listen. It's just very, very, very difficult. Actually, let's do a poll. What do you think? Let's do a poll. Was Disney right to cancel the Acolyte? I also had someone say to me, I had a comment where they were like, Disney hasn't officially confirmed it. And it's like, Disney never officially confirmed a show is cancelled for a press release or for social media or anything. They will say it might be renewed for a final season, but they would never normally come outright and say, by the way, we've deleted something. Chris just said, there's a great question here of, do you think the younger audience is just not interested in Star Wars like our generation is? 100%. I 100% agree that this is a major problem they've tried doing the Young Jedi Adventures, and that doesn't seem to have worked. I just don't think, I just know with my friend's kids as well, he never got into Star Wars. It's just strange. I think obviously there are kids getting into it, but I think Mando and maybe Baby Grogu and stuff. But right, there's so much competition and stuff like that. It is very tricky. It's like with Star Wars. I was thinking this the other day because I was playing some Fortnite and they've got a big Marvel event on right now. So they got all these Star Wars characters pop up, but you never really see anyone I've not really seen a lot of as interest in it. But I do think Star Wars is in a bit of a thing. I think they've oversaturated it. And I think they need to do a bit like Marvel of just go, whoa, let's pull it back a little bit. Let's let it breathe a little bit. Right. A great super chat here from Derek. Thank you so much for your super chat. That is fantastic. Thank you very much. Amazon, Disney, and Paramount currently operate 3 platforms. How long do you think that can last? It's hard enough for me to run one platform. That is the big thing, as well as they're distracted. They are putting it's like anything. Netflix is putting everything into one platform. And I think, like Amazon, obviously they've got was it MGM Plus and all the rest of it. I think they're all going to start consolidating their smaller apps in together, but it's just going to take time. It's amazing how slow everything runs. It's you could have predicted a lot of the stuff at the time ago. Why have you got if you think back to 2019, 2020, and you're going, why Disney have you got 10 different apps doing it pretty much the same thing? Consolidate. But I think they were too scared of losing that money. But I think cable is kind of making forcing that. But again, thank you so much for your support, Derek. That is fantastic. Let's see what else here we've got. Jonathan says, will Bluey air on Labor Day? I don't know about Disney Channel as far as it. There isn't any new ones coming. It's kind of weird because tomorrow it is our bank holiday Monday for the end of the summer, tomorrow, but in the US it's another week away, so it always throws me off. Kenny says, if Paramount Plus closes, where do you think the Paramount content will go? I don't know if they'll do an overall deal with Netflix, or if they will just license a la carte. So they'll be like, do you want this show? Do you want this one? Do you want to pay more for this one? Do you want to pay this? I think I wouldn't be surprised if they go a la carte. Chris says, people forget that most cable providers offer an app to stream their on-demand content on their mobile device. That's the other key thing. 100% right. They've kind of made their own systems to try and offer all this content through one place, again, making like things like FX Now just obsolete. Baltronic says, do you think will happen to the Food Network and HGV on streaming? I think that kind of content is probably still going to continue to be made, but I do think that kind of content also has much more likely shifted to YouTube. I mean, I watch, it's that kind of thing of like, I don't know if people are still watching those shows and they still do pull in enough numbers to make it, and they're not as expensive to make. But I do think like the idea of like Food Network and stuff. I mean, the minute I finish this, I'll end up watching Beard Meets Food. Oh, here we go, Chris. Thank you very much for your super chat. As far as the Acolyte being cancelled, it's all about the ratings like it was years ago when a show got cancelled. 100%. 100%. I think the trouble is there's emotions are so high on this show with the political elements to it that if you just take it down to a business level of they spent this much money, it did not perform, and therefore they don't want to spend that much money. I mean, let's be honest, I'd rather they spent $160 million on another season of Mandalorian because that would pull in much more viewers. I also think Disney needs to focus on where it's going with Star Wars. Pick an era and keep to it. Gene says, I didn't watch the whole Skywalker saga till last year. I mean, I really enjoyed Force Awakens. I thought that was so good. I really enjoyed it. The Last Jedi was... I did enjoy it when it came out. I didn't really have the big... There was that whole thing with the casino bite. I think, was that in that one? Where they kind of ended off going off on a host fetch quest that didn't make any sense. I think the biggest problem with the Skywalker saga, a lot of it as well, was they needed a much more clearer idea of where they were going, and it felt a little bit like they were making it up as they were going along. Jonathan said, was Disney renewed by Bluey? They're doing lots of specials and stuff. I think the creator just doesn't want to do it right now. Keenan says the reason why Discovery Plus is profitable is because they really don't need original content. Their content is linear networks. I mean, it's also, do you know how much Discovery Plus content could get made for the price of the Acolyte? A lot more. Do you think that Disney is the third streaming service for kids? Yeah, I mean, I think, you've pretty much got to put like YouTube, Netflix, and Disney. I think Disney Plus definitely is focused on kids content in like how well it pulls in, and it's a major reason for it. I think we're still at that weird point where, especially, I think America's slowly getting their head around it, but I don't think it's fully got there yet, of Disney Plus is more than just for kids stuff. And I think I hear it so often, flippant remarks on like YouTube videos and podcasts and stuff about, whoa, you only get Disney Plus for Bluey. And it's like, there's a lot of stuff on there now. But again, this whole wedging in like Hulu is very awkward. Chris says, with so much content now available to stream, a lot of content that used to work no longer does. There's a lot of content that just doesn't work in a streaming era. Sitcoms seem to be one that seems to have really struggled to move to streaming. The streaming networks just don't seem to be able to give them long enough to let them grow and give them time to grow. Also, I think the way that people talk about stuff, I do think the weekly release model worked better for some of these shows. I think Netflix has trained an audience to just gobble up stuff. And the trouble is they gobble up stuff and then they move on to the next thing so quickly that it's too expensive. And Netflix is just, they've created this thing where they're in charge of it all. And that's what they wanted. And it's not good for, we're really seeing some of the after effects of what's happened with Netflix getting so much control and every big platform chasing them and just trying to keep up with them. And I think that's been a major, major problem. Kenny says, my favorite was episode 3. I love the prequel trilogy. It's really weird. And I am in that category of, it was so bad. We were sat on a cruise, we went on a cruise earlier this year. I'm sat there watching Star Wars episode 2, I think it was. And like, I've seen it, I don't know, about 15, 20 times, maybe even more. I'm part of that thing of, like 18, 19, when those movies started coming out in my early 20s. I hated them. I really despised the fact that those. As I've gone on, I've got to appreciate them more. But I was that generation that I grew up on the originals, and that those prequels were rubbish compared to the originals. So I find this whole thing of Star Wars audiences, you've got different generations now where you've got like the prequel era that grew up on that. They think that's that's great, and that's I've really seen the difference in like how the Clone Wars and stuff gets looked at. And they're looking down on like the Force Awakens area, where I was a bit like, look, I've and it's like with the Acolyte stuff. I lived through the Ewoks movies as a kid, and we went like from Return of the Jedi right through to Phantom Menace, where we didn't have anything new. I'm fine with, Star Wars is for kids. That's kind of, it's like the Skeleton Crew. I'm really looking forward to Skeleton Crew. I feel like that might be going back to where Star Wars should be. But yeah, it's like you say, I loved all of them, but just saying, but that again, everyone is entitled to different things, and we're in this like weird zone where everyone follows everyone, and like and you can't criticize anything, and it's just there is nothing wrong with constructive criticism of that stuff. Chris says, I think you're right on the weekly release is better than all at once. I do think I think dropping 2 or 3 episodes at the start of a new series is a great way of allowing you to get in and start like connecting with the characters. So if you've got a debut for a new episode or new series, drop 2 or 3 episodes, let it get its grip into you, and you're more likely going to continue. I think as well, people have got more impatient and they want everything now. And this whole idea of watching an entire series in like 1 or 2 nights, just recently, like Love is Blind UK was released on Netflix, and they were doing like 2-3 episodes, and then they'd wait 2-3 nights, and then they'd drop another 2-3 episodes, and then they'd wait a couple more nights, and they spread it out over like a few weeks, because they knew that if they dropped that entire reality series in one day, people would have binged through the lot, and the spoilers would have been all over the internet, and they would have lost a lot of viewers that way. So even Netflix does it. Right, let's jump back into some of the questions. Daniel says, while we know that some channels coming this year, such as ABC New Lives and Pre-Sco shows, what channels do you want to see them add? I think there's a lot of opportunities, and there's a lot of stuff that they could do. I mean, Disney Plus could have 30, 40, 50, 60 curated channels. I think that's what they should be aiming for, not 4. They should be a Marvel channel, a Star Wars channel, a Disney Junior channel, and that Geo channel, and that Geo Wild channel. And then you can do like, I don't know, you could do a Criminal Minds channel and a Grey's Anatomy channel, and you could do all these different ones. And then when you got something coming up like, I don't know, Alien. So Alien Romulus is out, so therefore you could do an Alien channel, and you just run all the Alien movies back to back to try and promote that. You could do, a Spider-Man channel. You could do an X-Men channel. You could mix it up a bit. And also, you can you could do a Caesar Milan dog training channel, and you could do, all these and that Geo stuff. You could then put all the ABC News documentaries back to back. And as Chris said, you could see them do Disney classics. I mean, I know whenever we would go to the theme parks, I'd turn on the TV and there'd be like classic Disney cartoons running. I'd put it on for 20 minutes while we were getting ready to go out. That I think would be a great thing. Tim says, will the D23 Brazil event be live streamed in November? Judging off what they did for the Los Angeles one, no. I don't think they will. Keenan says, did anyone notice that DoorDash is the new partner for the Max streaming service? Let's be honest, Zaslav will team up with anybody to try and get an extra sub to Max. You'll do anything. And I also think as well, I don't know if anyone actually watches which is Caleb Hammer. It's like financial audit. It's a YouTube channel. And it's really fascinating to see how like things like DoorDash and Uber Eats and Just Eat and stuff has really caused some major financial problems. And I think this whole thing of just like ordering something and having food sent straight to your house, on one hand, it's really lazy, but also it's just not financially a good idea. Because, like I need to pop out and get milk and bread. You never just get milk and bread. but in some ways, like, I have to go out. There's that kind of thing to do so, and I think I've only ever done like Just Eat a few times. Usually, I think the only major time I did it was like if I think once I had it where I had some work being done every time there's work being done in the kitchen, it's like let's just get some food in but normally I just go pick it up anyway. Daniel says, do you think Disney is waiting for the full merger of Hulu to introduce channels aimed towards adults? Yeah. I think they're in a bit of again, this Comcast situation is like just a shackle around. They can't really engage properly with merging in Hulu because of the Comcast situation. Kelly says it was reported that Disney is making plans for potential Iger successors. Who should be the next CEO and what can be ensured to avoid another Chapek? I think this is a very tricky situation. Obviously, I think at the minute it seems like Dana Walden, who is the head of Disney TV, is in the lead, and that seems to be, according to Puck News, the one that he's leaning more towards. Josh D'Amaro is the theme parks person. I think we need someone that can kind of overlook the whole business and see everything. I personally feel like this is some big shoes to fill, and there's going to be a lot of expectations. And on one hand, what we need is for someone to come in and do things maybe a little bit differently. But at the same time, we don't really want that, and the Wall Street doesn't want that. They want some stability. They want someone that's going to come in and just kind of not only run Disney the way it has been, but try and improve it and not upshake the apple cart. And I do think that they would have learned some mistakes from the Chapek era, where they maybe go, right, that didn't work. I wouldn't be surprised if Iger stays on as an advisor for many years, either in as a chairman or something like that. I think he might stay on the board. I think he'll still be involved, but maybe not on a day-to-day level. And I think they would be best to. I think the trouble is when Chapek, by the sounds of it, he was undermined a little bit by Iger, and that weird period didn't really work, and he wanted to do it his way. But also, I think Chapek, he really did kind of get put in right at the wrong time, and I think that was. And I also think as well, he never really had the creative side, and I think Dana has that. I wouldn't be at all. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea if they actually had two, and you actually had Josh and Dana as joint CEOs for a bit, and like one has control of entertainment and one has control over like the parks and cruises and stuff, and kind of allow them to like bounce off each other a little bit. Tim says, has there been any updates on the Raven Home spin-off, Alice in the Palace? I don't think so. I haven't heard anything about that for a while. Babak says, if the Wizards reboot goes well, what other shows could Disney bring back? This one did make me laugh because it's not so much about the fact of being able to bring them back. It's more about the fact of the stars that were in these shows. Some of them have gone on to become major superstars. And also, I don't think that they're really at a point in their career where they need to go back. So Sabrina Carpenter and Olivia Rodrigo, and also I think did Jenny Ortega, wasn't she in a show as well? But they are too big now to do a Disney Channel show, and also they have moved on from being a Disney Channel like kid person. They've rechanged their the way that they kind of present themselves. But also then you have to look at like there's a whole load of the actors and stuff which I mean, I think it was Amanda Bynes has really struggled. There's a lot of them that have really struggled to move on, and that would be an issue for them, and whether or not they're now kid friendly. But here is the other thing as well, and I know a lot of people don't like to hear this, but those shows won't work for this new audience of kids. Those shows, kids of today are not interested. They've not got nostalgia for that stuff, and they're the audience that they're aiming at. This new Wizards one is being aimed at a brand new generation. It's not being aimed at older folks, because those people, there's not enough of them. There's not, you might have some nostalgia for Wizards of Waverly Place, and you might check out an episode or two, but they are not making it for you. They are making it for the 8, 9, 10-year-olds of today. And I don't think this idea of going back and trying to recapture that idea is just, I don't think it's going to work. I just don't think it will work. Matt says, when do you think Disney Plus will get a major update? I think obviously the next big one is the curated playlist and stuff coming next month. September or December is going to be the big one, really. I think with the introduction of ABC. Talking about ABC, ESPN. Right, let's jump now into see what else we've got here in the live show. If you've got any more questions, feel free to put them in. If not, once we've finished the questions, that'll be the end of this week's show. Chris says, do you think Venu Sports will ever get off the ground, or is it dead in the water? Oh, that thing is so dead. I don't think Venu Sports is going to happen. I think that thing is completely dead. I don't see how that I think it's opened up a can of worms with all the discovery that's come out and what the other cable companies are going to want from them. I don't think Warner Brothers is in a good spot anyway with it losing the NBA. So I think the other companies might be like, do we need to team up with them? Disney might be like, yeah, this is bringing too much heat. Adios. I think they've put in a thing for an appeal. It probably will go to court and they'll try and get it going. But I think if there's too much pressure, and depending on what happens with the election in November, who's in, that could also influence it. I think this whole platform is just like dead in the water. They might as well just, do these deals with like other ones. I think Fubo TV and all the rest, I think they're only building on borrowed land, and this thing ain't going to last forever. They're just trying to pull as much cash as they can out before cable fully disintegrates. But I think Disney would be much better focused just to go, look, we're out. We're just going to focus on our own ESPN on Disney Plus thing. Babak says, do you think that Netflix with no ads in 2007 was a mistake for the streaming industry in the long term? So if you think back to 2007 when like streaming first started, this was a weird time, and we couldn't have foreseen where the industry was going to go. This was a long time ago. Things have changed, but also, and I think a lot of people don't necessarily think of this, they were a disruptor. They were breaking the habits of what was going on. Streaming, until everyone's internet got fast enough to do it, it couldn't be done. Music had already been like massively changed by the internet, but it hadn't happened to TV yet. The other big problem is Netflix didn't need to run ads because all it was doing when it launched was just using everybody else's content, which was able to get really cheap because the other companies were like, well, yeah, we can license to you for that because it doesn't really matter. And also, the trouble is, at the time, is cable was still paying for everything. The American cable system was perfect for the studios because they were making people pay for channels they didn't have. It was slightly different here in the UK. You could get a movie if you just got like Sky Television, Sky Satellite. You didn't have to have the sports channels. You had the choice of if you wanted the movie bundle, the sports bundle, or the entertainment bundle. And there was even optional, like you could get the kids bundle, you could get news bundle, the documentary. It was all like broken down a la carte. Whereas in America, they just went, yeah, you want cable, you have to pay for everything. So the studios loved it. They were getting paid no matter whether you watched it or not. Netflix came in, broke the whole industry, and now we are seeing the after effects of what's happened, where binge watching, the addition of like Netflix made no money for 10 years. Plus, I think they made like 10 years where they weren't making a profit. They were able to get so far ahead, and then suddenly, and they were being viewed as a tech company rather than a studio, and it screwed entertainment up. And Netflix is, not everything they make. I mean, I just watched a movie this afternoon, The Union. Oh, it was diabolical. I mean, it was awful. And it was just like, this is such a bad movie. Because it was it's just so many things of it. I think with it being set in England, I was just like, this just doesn't work. But yeah, Babatron, you're making me feel really old now. You were 2 years old. See, there again, I was 27. So that's why, it's that thing of like I got a very different view of like that whole year, because I lived in an era where you didn't have Netflix, and you had to go to the video shop and you had, you know, the whole concept of on demand and watching stuff. And I think that is a big issue as well. Of you've grown up in this era of having everything at your fingertips, and you have got used to watching without ads, and you assume that could continue forever, and that just was not financially viable. And then you got old folk like me who grew up with ads and like having to pay for stuff very differently, and therefore we have different views on it. But also we are more this why linear cable and stuff is still around is because we've been like, my parents have been having like Sky TV for like 40 years. That's a hard habit to break. Keen says it's funny you mentioned Netflix, because when Roku was released in 2007 and Hulu launched in 2007. Yeah, I mean, I think like Hulu was basically just a combat to Netflix, where all the studios just came together and were like, yeah, we need to kind of maybe do something for this one. And it's funny because streaming started in the late noughties because it was a year after Blu-ray. Yeah. So that's the thing is, and you actually missed the video shop. I mean, when I was a kid, I actually used to literally at the end of my street, we actually had a video shop, and it was called the Video Shop. So I used to rent movies all the time because I could go down there, and they used to do an offer where if you went down to the video shop, you could rent a movie, and as long as you brought it back by 6 o'clock, you'd only pay half price. So we used to go there in the morning, like just after it opened at 11. We'd grab a new movie, usually the big new release, pay half, and we could bring it back by 6 o'clock because they'd rent it out in the evening. But you would go in there, and they would only have 1 or 2 copies of each video. And so you'd go along, and the video would have like a little sign on it, whether it was out or not. Now, could you imagine, like, you're sitting there on the Apple iTunes store right now, and you go to watch a new movie, and you go, oh, no, someone's already got that one. You can't watch it. So you have to wait. You go in next week. And so you used to book it in. So you'd be like, right, a new movie was coming out. You'd be like, I used to pre-order my rentals from my video store. Blockbuster then opened down the street, about a mile away, and it was twice as much to rent from there. But the big difference was that they would have like 50 to 60, 70 copies of the biggest new releases, and if you couldn't get one when you went in, you could get it for free next time. So you start and you realize very quickly that it was more expensive, and they also had a really good video game section. So I used to rent like Super Nintendo and Mega Drive games and PlayStation stuff. So yeah, I used to literally spend all my money in the video shop. And then when I was at college, I used to go to like games like HMV and MVC, and I used to literally spend every bit of my money on buying VHSs, DVDs, and I used to have thousands of movies on physical media. And now I've got like a box underneath the stairs. Keenan says, I didn't start using a streaming service until 2010 because my mum and dad had Netflix. I mean, that would have been about the time that most people would have started anyway. But even that is 24, so that's 14 years ago. So it's been around a long time. So just gonna last chance for last minute questions, but me taking a trip down memory lane about the video shops. Used to be able to buy the movie posters for 10p from the video shop. So my entire bedroom when I was like a teenager was just full of movie posters. And I used to change them constantly because it was like, if it's like 50p, you'd be like, I could get 5 new posters for the new movies. Right. On that note, guys, thank you very much. I will be back next week with another live Q&A. Have a fantastic week. And on that note, guys, thank you very much. See you guys soon. Laters. Tally ho.